Good evening, and welcome to the Bullshit Channel. I was about 10 minutes into this, and some friggin' ad popped up on my phone and shut off my video recorder. If it does it again, I'm going to have to search through my phone and find out where the little bastard's at and get rid of it. What I want to talk about is I started watching a lady named Karen Staughan YouTube videos after I seen her in Red Pill. And she's a Canadian lady that she's part of the honey badgers that you get introduced to in the video, in the Red Pill video. And I though, you don't see much of her there, but, there were some other videos I watched where she was part of discussion panels and stuff like that, I got interested and thought, this lady's got it going on. I want to, see what else she has to say. So I found her on YouTube, made her a favorite. You can find her, if you're on my site, on my YouTube site, you can go down through my channels list and find her. She, what started this, what I'm talking about now, she did an interview with a guy named Christopher Cantwell. And I guess he was involved, he considers himself a white nationalist, which he wants an all-white state, but he's not a Nazi. From what he talked about, he's not talking about genocide, he's not talking about anything else. Now, whether I agree with him or not, he's a human being and he has an opinion, and he's not afraid to express it, whether I agree with it or not. I guess from the deal that went down in Charlottesville is his organization had a permit for a rally, and there was some court crap that went on. They had to get an injunction to force the city to enforce their permit after they granted it, and then tried to take it back. So the city went from having them, I guess, have control of the whole park to a small corner of the park, and the police forced them to walk through violent protesters. The supposed social police people, yelling, calling him and his group Nazis and all this other crap, and they threw balloons filled with piss, crap, bottles, rocks. The people that had the permission for the rally were sprayed with mace. Not from the cops, from the other protesters. And, now there was an altercation, I guess, and he maced some guy that attacked him, and the dude filed charges, so now he has to answer those charges. And after his interview with Karen, he was going to turn himself into the authorities in Virginia. I guess that's where he lives. But, through what he does and what he stands for, and he talks. I guess he had a YouTube site, and he had a radio program. And now, after, I don't know if this shit happened before or after the Charlotte stuff, it seems like all his online accounts have been canceled. You try to search his name on Google, nothing comes up. Or if it does, it just shows you all the bad shit. And, during the interview, Karen asked him, I thought some pointed questions. And she let him, without getting nasty with him or anything, let him state his point of view. They had an intelligent discussion. And it went fine, I thought. Being that there was no, you cunt and you asshole crap going back and forth. It was very civil, which from what I can tell and from what I've seen, we need more civility. You know, the whole thing, and like I mentioned about the red pill, you know, you see the feminists out there and they're calling people fuck faces and rapists and fuck off and, you know, shut the fuck up. And it seems to me that the feminist vocabulary sentence structure has fuck in it somewhere. And I'm an old sailor, and I don't even say fuck that bad. And if I'm trying to have an intelligent conversation with somebody, fuck's not going to be in the discussion at all. Okay? Because though I don't see it so much as a bad word, and the people I hang around with, we all use it occasionally, but all that does in normal conversation is incite anger. You know, hey, if I would have been talking to Big Red and she called me a fuckface, conversation would have been done. I would have just looked at her like I look at most of the evangelical monotheists when I'm trying to talk to them, and just figured, okay, here comes the circular logic, I'm done, I'm out of here. You know, because nothing I say is going to get through the bullshit that's stuffed in your ears. You know, but, you know, Cantwell, he goes on, you know, the interview is about an hour long. If you want to look at it, it's on Karen Straughan's site on YouTube. That's Karen, capital Straughan. Not hard to find. And in her comments, and she posted a second video right behind that one, it was her comments on the interview with Cantwell. And she gave him some points, but, you know, she really doesn't agree. You know, she doesn't agree with the all white nation stuff. And, you know, but she didn't berate him for having those opinions. And Cantwell even himself said that if somebody can, you know, persuade me to have different ideas, I'm more than willing to change my mind on stuff. But I think what we're dealing with here, in our, not just with, you know, Karen and Christopher Cantwell, but in all these, and I said something about them in my last video, was, you know, these different special interest groups, Black Lives Matter, feminist movement, there's different racial groups. There's so many damn racial groups out there, I don't keep a list of them. You know, the gay rights, you know, you got lesbian rights, you got gay rights, you got transgender rights, and all this stuff, okay? I want to know why we just can't accept people for people, okay? It's bullshit. If some dude walks up to me, and I ran into this at was either Best Buy, I think. There was a transgender dude checking us out. And I was with my dad, he just turned 88 years old. And his eyebrows kind of went up. And I talked to the dude, you know, and I complimented him on his hair. I thought his hair was fantastic. I loved his hair. And, you know, we talked and, you know, went on our way. You know, I didn't have any feelings, oh, you know, I need to go wash myself because this guy touched my shit, or, you know, that guy's a this, that, or the other thing. I applauded him that he went out in public and actually went to work dressed that way. Hell, I wish more people had the balls. I like anybody that bucks society, because I think our society's so screwed up, we need more people pissing people off. But not in a violent, I'm going to cut your throat because you're gay, pissing people off. But doing stuff, you know, on the fringes. I'm in the process of growing, my beard will not be shortened anytime in the foreseeable future. My hair is going to get longer. Because I've found out, at least in this area, and I usually wear leather when I go out, so everybody, in my size, everybody thinks I'm a biker. And I've never owned a bike. Rode in the bitch seat up to Ohio on the back of a big Honda once. but I've never owned a bike. I've always been a four-wheel, hot rod, gear slamming, four-barrel carburetor type of guy. And now my body's so jacked up because I really considered building a bike. Buy somebody's project and then have my friend Pat, who's the bike guru, help me put it together. But my knees and my feet, I got diabetic nerve pain going on, and I've had 2 knee surgeries. I've had 2 elbow surgeries. I just don't think I'd really be safe on a bike. So, I drive a 4-door 2001 Grand Marquis. But, I look at these people, and I don't automatically think Cantwell, because of his opinions and views, is ignorant. In fact, he was very well spoken. He did swear a lot, which, oh fucking well. And he got, some of the topics that she touched on, he actually cried because he felt so strongly about them. This whole race baiting and, stuff like this that, and Karen points it out, and it's happened, and I see it happening. It's one of the reasons I don't watch network TV anymore, because I get tired of being portrayed as an asshole. Not me personally, but me as a white male in our supposed white male privileged fucking world. Okay? I've never felt privileged. I was married 22 years, raised 2 kids, I was a sperm donor for 3. My ex-wife gave our first daughter up for adoption before we got married. And I never held that against her. She did what she had to do. So I raised 2 boys, not very well, and it wasn't because I was a dick, because I was a man, it was because I was an asshole, because I was a drunk. I was more concerned with drinking and partying and having a good time. And there were times I worked 3 and sometimes 4 jobs to make sure that my family had enough on the table and clothes on their back and shit like that and cars to drive, and I still had money to drink on, that I didn't short my family that. It wasn't until after I got divorced that I started not worrying about paying bills and shit. The thing is, I read an article. A friend of mine gave me this magazine. It's called Free Inquiry. It says Celebrating Reason and Humanity. It's the April-May 2017 edition, volume 37, number 3. There's an article in there. In fact, there were several articles that I found interesting, but this one really kind of got my attention. It's called Enhancing Virtues, Fairness. And what it's talking about is well, I'll read this little paragraph because it explains it better than I can. I'm not a neurobiologist. But it said, liberals and conservatives are as different as people from entirely different cultures. These political differences are deeply rooted in neurobiological differences. And the rest of the article goes on and says, a lot of the differences we see between conservatives and liberals can be boiled down to biology. Their brains process neurotransmitters different, but it's not something you have to live with. You can still change the way you think. But I mentioned Pythagoras. I don't know if it was my first or second video. Because there's a connection between him and Druids, so I've studied him because I can find more information about Pythagoras than I can the Druids. Thank you, Catholicism for wiping out all my ancestral history. But the deal is that Pythagoras taught his followers that only a few people in each generation get it. And by getting it, he meant finding spirituality. And the kind of spirituality that doesn't have to do with going to church or, kissing the Pope's ring or, any of that other superfluous bullshit that monotheistic religions promote. And I've come, after debate, thinking about that and doing some other research and talking to other people of various spiritual paths, I think he hit it pretty much on the head. I will say I believe in reincarnation, and not just the type of reincarnation I went through when I quit drinking and became a better person because I changed my life 180 degrees. But that is a form of reincarnation. The spirituality, and this ties into my reincarnation theory, which I'll get into in a later video, I'm not going to talk about it right now, is we keep coming back. That we are, in effect, all different faces of the same God. Or gods. There's even some evidence that the Druids themselves, not the Celtic people per se, but the Druids themselves, only they believed in multiple gods, but there was also one big dude or girl. In fact, they don't lay a sex on it. They don't lay a name. It's just God. Okay? And my thoughts are, and after 15 years of study, I keep saying that because our society, if you say, oh, I've only been studying something 6 months, they're going to say you're full of shit. And probably even with me saying I've done it for 15 years, people are still going to say I'm full of shit. But it's not my problem. I don't worry about what other people think about me. The thing is, we keep coming back until we learn all we need to learn to become gods ourselves. And I'll go into what's brought me to that conclusion in a later video, but I think it all ties in that right now, for some reason, our society and our world as a whole is lacking in spiritual enlightenment. One of the things about the Druids that they are, I had to change hands. I smoked a cigarette. The Druids were the last, or were what did they call it? The last pre-patriarchal society. Transition. They were a transition society. So when you study Druidry, there's a lot of goddesses, there's a lot of gods, and they believed in reincarnation. And that's how they were maligned a lot in history, is because, they'll talk about a goddess being another god's daughter, but she was also his wife, or stuff like that. Well, what they're talking about is in a previous life, she was his daughter. And now in this life, she is his wife. And we're talking decades in between, to make it easier to understand. We're not talking that today she's his daughter and tomorrow she's his wife. It's not the way it worked. It was reincarnation. They came back from a previous existence. And there's some stuff I've read from non-pagan people, and I'm getting off on that tangent. I'm going to stop it right now because I need to dedicate a whole video to that. But, you know, as more science comes through, and trust me, you can't believe all science, and I always put a grain of salt, or actually a whole salt shaker, if I find out that somebody's working off of government grants, because they'll do anything to keep that money rolling in. So I have a tendency to not believe them, to be honest. I don't believe our government. And the last straw for me was finding out that the diet that I grew up being recommended to eat by our government was bullshit. August 1st, I weighed 292. I weighed today, I weighed 273. And that was by quitting the fucking government nutritional bullshit information that I grew up with as a kid. You know? It only took me 58 years to figure that one out, because nobody ever said anything about it until just here recently. And also, too, by quitting eating the government's recommended bullshit, I haven't taken my insulin in a month and a half. I was off my insulin the first week of the diet because it was driving my blood sugar too low. Wow. I didn't have to stick a needle in my belly for the last year and a half. All I had to do was quit eating carbs. Go figure. Thank you, Uncle Sam. Lying sack of shit. But, you know, this thing, you know, why can't we get along? You know, I learned in the Navy, and I was on submarines first, you know. I didn't get along with the whole, you know, there was roughly 100 dudes on the fast attack I was on. I was on a 637 class fast attack submarine. And I'll be the first to admit that, you know, I didn't get along with everybody. But, you know, I didn't have to worry about them not pulling my ass out of a flooding compartment because I had used some racial slur on them. You know, and when I was on surface ships, you know, we're more concerned with burn, you know, with shit being on fire than we are flooding. And the same thing held true. I didn't have to worry about, none of the crew that I had contact with on a daily basis would not pull my happy ass out of a burning compartment because I had racially profiled them or called them some racial slur or whatever. You know? It's bullshit. You know? I look at these, you know, these videos shot by these idiot protesters, and they're looting and burning and all this other crap. And, you know, somebody goes in to ask them an intelligent question and they get called honky, and they get called cracker, and they get called other worse names, and pushed around, physically assaulted. And I think these people are being led down the primrose path by whoever they consider their leader. And I would not doubt that if you looked into the leader's financials, he's probably making some big bucks, or he's being funded by the Koch brothers or some other Republican or Democrat-backed fucking organization just to keep the racial shit going because it separates our country. You know, I live in Akron, Ohio, and I was born and raised in Greensburg. It's called Greene now. And I was not raised around a lot of racial diversity. There was one black family, when I graduated in 77, there was one black family that had kids in school, and they were in junior high when I graduated. And I never met them. But that point changed, granted, I had dealings with other than white people in the bowling league. I had other dealings with other than white people. Street racing, I had dealings with other than white people. On a day-to-day basis, when I worked in Akron and worked in a body shop, and I worked for Acme, and race never played a factor for me. Now, I've seen shit done by people that I don't like what they did, but I'm not going to label a whole race negatively just because one person was a dumbass. So, I don't know, it's going to take somebody smarter than me, or maybe somebody not as greedy as our government, to start talking sense into people. But maybe that can't happen because biologically they can't handle the information. Like I said, I was raised Lutheran, which is Catholic light. And it took me until I was 44 and getting sober in Alcoholics Anonymous to find out that I could be something other than Christian. It took something that nearly killed me to show me that that aspect of my life was bullshit. What I just want, I guess, acceptance. I accept you for being a monotheist. You accept me for being a pagan. I'm not a devil worshiper, which is actually, in truth, the flip side of Christianity. Without Christianity, there wouldn't be devil worship. The whole, our society is, and the only thing I can see that causes this shit's monotheism. Is it's so ingrained in our society, whether you claim you're an atheist or not, you're still monotheistic. And I don't say that because I'm a pagan. I say that because in every aspect of our society, I see monotheistic tendencies. The closed-mindedness, the bigotry, the negative feelings towards people that don't agree with them. I might be all wet, but that's the way I look at it. And I really don't think I'm wrong. If we ever, for our society to survive, maybe it's going to take some kind of apocalyptic event that destroys our infrastructure and, destroys what we have now. I'd kind of look at that as a culling of the herd. Then you would be on only the strong survive. Because from what I see on a daily basis, there's people out here that can't, especially youngins, they can't survive without the cell phone. They can't survive without the computer. I can live off the land. Maybe that's what maybe that's what it's going to take to stop the bullshit. Anyways, that's long enough. Thanks for watching the Bullshit Channel. See you again.